Imagine ruling an empire powerful enough to negotiate with Egypt, feared enough to challenge the Hittites, and rich enough to leave behind palaces, seals, and royal marriages. Now imagine that empire almost disappearing, not because it never existed, but because its own voice is missing. No central archive, no confirmed capital, and a story mostly told by its enemies. Today, we're investigating the kingdom of Mitanni, an empire that dominated the ancient Near East and then faded into the shadows. Mitanni rose to power in the mid-2nd millennium BCE in the region of northern Mesopotamia, roughly parts of modern Syria and Iraq. To understand why Mitanni is such a mystery, you have to understand what it should have left behind. When we study ancient superpowers, we usually get royal inscriptions, victory stelae, monumental temples, and, most importantly, archives. Egypt has temples and tomb inscriptions. The Hittites left massive libraries of tablets. Assyria recorded its conquests like a running scoreboard. But Mitanni is like a major character in a story who never gets a direct line of dialogue. What we know comes from scattered archaeology and from foreign records, Egyptian diplomatic letters, Hittite treaties, and Assyrian conquest accounts. So the first question is simple. If Mitanni mattered this much, why is it so hard to find? Mitanni's capital is usually called Washukanni, sometimes spelled Washukanni. And here's the problem. We still don't know exactly where it was. Many scholars suspect it was somewhere in the Kabur region. One proposed location is near Tel El Fakhariya, but it's not proven. That uncertainty is not a small detail, because if you can't find the capital, you can't find the central archive. And without the archive, you can't hear Mitanni's own version of events. So we're left reconstructing a powerful empire from fragments, like trying to solve a crime scene after someone cleaned the room. Washukanni is one of those problems where the map can tempt you into certainty. The geography makes sense. The region makes sense. Even a few candidate sites can look capital-sized from a distance. But a capital is not just a big settlement. A capital leaves a very specific kind of mess. Here's the pattern investigators keep running into. Some places give you impressive ruins, strong walls, the kind of footprint that whispers, important. But when you ask the next question, where is the paperwork? The answer is thin. A true capital should produce administration at scale, dense clusters of tablets, ceilings, storage accounting, rations, deliveries, lists of names, not one or two finds. A sustained, repetitive, boring mountain of it. Other candidates flip the problem. You might find tablets or administrative traces, but the scale feels local, like a regional hub, not the beating heart of an empire that negotiated with Egypt and the Hittites. It's the difference between a provincial office and the headquarters. Both use paperwork. Only one produces it in overwhelming volume. And then there's the third category. The location fits strategically. The landscape feels right, but the signature pieces are missing. The palace complex, the archive rooms, the concentrated ceiling dumps that scream, central authority lived here. So the case stays open for a simple reason. Every lead gives you one part of the fingerprint, but not the whole hand. And until one site produces that unmistakable capital signature, Washukanni remains a name we can circle, without being able to pin it down. So what would it actually take to stop guessing and say, with confidence, this is Washukanni? Archaeologists look for a specific kind of fingerprint when they're dealing with a true capital, not just big walls or a palace. A capital produces paperwork at scale. You expect administrative tablets in bulk, inventories, tax records, rations, deliveries, lists of names and professions. You expect ceilings, lots of them, because bureaucracy loves stamps. You expect standardized weights and measures, storage facilities, and evidence of controlled distribution, grain, textiles, metal, livestock. And if Mitanni really sat at the center of great power diplomacy, you would hope for at least traces of international correspondence, letters, copies, archives, even fragments. The problem is that many candidate sites give you one piece of that picture, but not the whole machine. A strong fortification here, a promising palace plan there, a handful of tablets somewhere else. But the thing that would end the debate is a dense, unmistakable cluster of administration, the kind of layered, repetitive, boring evidence that only a capital can generate year after year. Until that shows up, Washukanni stays less like a point on a map and more like a missing room in the building. And if the room is missing, the archive can be missing with it. One of the clearest windows into Mitanni comes from the Amarna letters, a collection of diplomatic tablets tied to Egypt. These aren't myths. They're not legends. They're the paperwork of international politics. And in that paperwork, Mitanni appears as a real player, negotiating marriages, alliances, and prestige. This matters because it shows Mitanni wasn't a minor kingdom. It was part of the Great Powers Club. But notice what's missing. Even here, Mitanni is seen from the outside. We get the outline of the empire, without the internal blueprint. So we move to the next clue. Another set of sources comes from Nutsi, tablets that reveal economic and social life. They show a world of contracts, property, and administration. Not glamorous, but incredibly revealing. Because empires don't run on battles alone. They run on logistics, on scribes, on grain, on legal systems. Nutsi helps prove Mitanni's world was structured and bureaucratic. But again, this is still not the missing royal library. It's like finding receipts without finding the CEO's emails. Now we hit one of the most sensitive and most fascinating parts of the Mitanni mystery. Mitanni is closely associated with the Hurrian cultural and linguistic sphere. But within Mitanni-related material, scholars have noted Indo-Aryan linguistic traces, especially in elite contexts like certain names and terms. Here's what we can say safely. The evidence exists as linguistic traces. Scholars debate what it means. One mainstream interpretation is that these traces reflect an elite layer, not necessarily the broader population. And that distinction matters, because modern people love to claim ancient identities for modern politics. That's not what we're doing here. We're investigating what the evidence can support and where it stops. So the question becomes, was Mitanni a melting pot empire with a complex elite culture? Or are we seeing something else, something we can't fully decode because the archive is missing? Mitanni didn't vanish overnight. It was pressured from multiple directions, especially by the Hittites and later the Assyrians. And when Assyria expanded into the region, something chilling happened. Assyrian records describe systematic control, deportations, administrative restructuring, and the renaming of cities. In other words, Mitanni wasn't just conquered, it was absorbed, rewritten, filed away under a new provincial identity. This is one reason the Mitanni story feels ghost-like, because the winners wrote the history, and the losers lost their archives. Once you accept that the capital is missing, the archive becomes the next question. Because archives do not vanish like smoke, they usually leave a trail, and there are only a few realistic ways a royal archive disappears. First, it was destroyed. War, fire, deliberate erasure. If that happened, you'd expect a very specific archaeological signature. Burn layers, collapsed roofs, shattered tablets, fragments baked hard by heat, ash lenses in the soil. Destruction can erase the story, but it often leaves the debris of the story behind. Second, it was buried or sealed and simply hasn't been reached yet. A collapse can turn an archive into a time capsule. In that scenario, you'd expect concentrated tablet dumps, intact shelving impressions, sealed rooms, and the kind of dense pocket discovery archaeologists dream about. One doorway, one chamber, and suddenly, the paperwork of an empire is sitting where it fell. Third, it was scattered, looted, moved, recycled, carried off in pieces over decades. That version leaves a different trail, tablets turning up far from where they were written, mixed provenances, collections without context, and a strange silence at the source site. Not a clean disappearance, but a slow dismantling. And this is why modern discoveries matter so much. A palace emerging from the ground, like Kemune, doesn't automatically solve Washukanni. But it proves something crucial. Major rooms can survive, hidden, waiting for the right conditions. Which means the archive problem isn't just a mystery. It's a search with a real physical endpoint, somewhere under the soil. So if you're wondering why Mitanni doesn't have the monumental footprint of other empires, one answer is, it may have been deliberately overwritten. Let's talk about the single biggest hole in the case, the royal archives. We lack the central administrative library of Washukanni, and without it, huge parts of Mitanni remain uncertain. Internal politics, royal succession details, the empire's own religious and legal language, how it viewed its neighbors. It's the difference between hearing a story from a witness versus hearing it from a rival. So where did the archive go? There are a few possibilities. It's still buried under an unexcavated site. It was destroyed during conquest. It was carried off, scattered, or repurposed. And until that archive is found, Mitanni will remain one of history's most powerful, known unknowns. In recent years, drought conditions and rescue excavations have exposed Mitanni period architecture, most famously at Kemune, sometimes described as a sunken palace emerging from the Tigris region. Now, we need to be careful here. Finding a palace doesn't automatically solve the mystery of the capital, but it does expand the material record. It gives us something physical to point to, walls, rooms, context. And it reminds us of something important. The Mitanni world is still in the ground. Parts of the story may be waiting for the next excavation season, or the next environmental shift, to surface. So here's the clean evidence split. What we know with medium to high confidence. Mitanni was a major power in the mid-2nd millennium BCE. It engaged in high-level diplomacy, including with Egypt. It had structured administration and economic life. It was eventually absorbed into Assyrian control structures. What remains unresolved? The confirmed location of Washukanni, the missing royal archives, the full meaning of the Indo-Aryan linguistic traces, the internal story Mitanni told about itself, and that unresolved zone, that gap between power and silence, is exactly why Mitanni is such a compelling mystery. If Mitanni's capital is still out there, then somewhere beneath the soil of northern Mesopotamia could be the missing library, tablets that would rewrite what we think we know about this era. And if those tablets are found, they won't just tell us where Washukanni was. They'll tell us who Mitanni believed it was. In the next investigation, we're going to follow the trail of ancient diplomacy even deeper, because one set of letters may hide a clue to the location of a capital that vanished without a trace. If you want more mysteries investigated with evidence and delivered with drama, subscribe, and I'll see you in the next case.